Hi guys, Jordan from B&P Campers. Just going to do your handover video on your Vauxhall Vivaro. It's a LandRoamer conversion. So we have had a couple of these LandRoamers before. We've currently got recently sold a VW that's been converted by the same people. We have them done up north and bring them back down here. So they're a really nice quality conversion inside, with pretty much any optional extra can be fitted to them. Hot plates, any kind of extra bits and pieces up on those can be done. So get in touch if you ever wanted to inquire about any of those. But for this particular one, we'll start under the bonnet here, and like I said, it's a Vauxhall Vivaro. So on the left just here, we've got your fuel filter and pump. Well, fuel pump actually sits down there, but fuel filter. There's normally a little priming bulb around there somewhere. It's probably to do with this. Washer fluid gets topped up through this yellow top one over here. Power steering fluid sits in this reservoir at the front. Engine oil gets topped up through this cap just here, and you can actually check the engine oil from the dipstick just here. Back on properly. Your brake fluid attached to the servo just up here on the top right, and your engine coolant sits over here in this reservoir on the right as well. So kind of orangey fluid there for the coolant. You got various fuses and relays underneath here. Air filter sits inside this box just here. This particular model has got air conditioning, so it does give you a couple of bits and pieces telling you about it. There should be a little sticker somewhere about that. But yeah, that's about it for under the bonnet really. There's not much else to show you, I don't think. On the near side, we've got your fuel filler cap. So obviously this is a diesel vehicle, like pretty much every motorhome is. So nothing there telling you it's diesel. You don't need the ignition key or anything to get that open. You do quite literally just turn it and open it. Inside the passenger door, the bonnet release is on the other side, so that's not on this side. You've got a good sized cup holder just here. Lots of storage inside here. Looks like the original touch-up paint. So if you did need to touch up any bits and pieces on the van, there is an original touch-up brush there, and positive terminal cover for the engine battery. People tend to leave them off, to be honest, because they can be a bit of a pain to fiddle around with to get off. Underneath here is where you get to your engine battery. It's nice and easy to get to. Once you take this little cover off here, you can, it's just a couple of bolts to get to that. This brown clip just here, really important. I need to show you what this does, because whenever you go to turn this captain's seat around, turn it all the way around so that you can use it as like a dining area or a dinette, you need to unplug this and tuck it away underneath. If you don't do that, what will happen is it will get stuck when you try and turn it around. But also, if you don't plug this back in again when you turn the seat around and tighten them on, you'll get a airbag warning light up on the dash anytime that you start the engine up. So anytime that you start the engine up and this isn't plugged in, you will get the warning light on. So you need to make sure you remember to plug that back together, and then leave it around here for when you're driving. Tightening up these is really, really simple. You do literally just tighten them up like that, and then they're not going to move anywhere. When you go to loosen them off, you just come all the way up until it will release like that. Twist it around until they come up like that, and then you can see there the little pins are outside. So when you go to put it back down again, pins in, and then tighten this down. So that's how all those work. All four of them are the same. So that's the captain's seat. I'll go around the outside first, and then we'll jump on the inside. At the back here, again, there's not a huge amount to show you. There was a little bit of paintwork that needed doing down here, so that has all been done. It was just a little bit flat, basically, where it had a little scuff mark before. I actually flattened it off and then didn't get a chance to paint it, so that's all been done. In the back of the vehicle here, we've got your gas locker. Now, obviously, the LandRoamers are really, really good for having the full-size gas locker. Instead of having one that's this size, where you can only fit one of the tiny little butane bottles in, this one you can actually fit a full-size 6 kilo propane bottle in here, which really is much better for general camping. Turning the bottle on, the little knob that's inside, just at the top here, I don't know if you can really see on the video, you need to turn the dial anti-clockwise around to the left to turn it on, and clockwise around to the right to turn it off. I'm going to leave it on for the minute. And the other bits really are up there. You can't really see them, but to be honest with you, you don't need to see them. The only thing you need to know is turning the bottle on and off. You need to turn the bottle off before you start driving. That's absolutely, definitely you need to do that. And when you come to replace the bottle for a new one, undo this nut just here, take it off, put it onto your new bottle, tighten it on, and that's it. That's all you need to do. All of the stuff up here on the regulator is all just for our testing purposes, so you don't need to worry about any of that. But yeah, for the time being, I'm going to leave that locker open because I've got it on. But you don't need to leave it, you don't need to do that, but just so that I don't forget to turn it off. You've got some spare toilet fluids down here, just in case you need them. And this pipe just here, by the way, is the dropout hole for your gas locker. So because it's not the bottom locker, it needs to have a dropout hole directly to the floor. So this little vent just here in the corner just basically comes directly down there. So if ever there was a gas leak in this locker, it's got the right amount of breathing space straight down into the floor. Because gas is heavier than air, if it did leak, it would go down that hole and go out down the floor rather than coming into the vehicle. So that's what those lockers are down there. In here, another important one, so you've got your table and table leg. So I've personally used this and it works really, really well. So you literally just pull this out, so that's your table there, and you've got your table leg next door to it, which is just held together by a couple of straps there. So undo the straps, take those out, and then that gives you access straight away to using the table, which slots into that there. So that's really helpful. Having them down there really nicely tucked away like that is nice, because it means you haven't got to use up any valuable space inside the vehicle really. Right, so I'll just go around this offside now. So a couple of bits to show you. You got your nice Land Rover sticker there, so it tells you exactly what it is, what model, what make, sorry. The hookup goes in here. So anytime the hookup's plugged in, your battery charger will automatically be working, or at least if you have the switch on inside, which I'll show you in a minute. But that's where the hookup goes in. That'll also give you access to your 240 volt sockets. And the only other bit is you've got your waste outlet just here. So if you're going to drain out your wastewater, you go over your wastewater drain off and then open that little flap up. Or if you've got a drain away, like a roll away waste tank, you pop that underneath there. Looks to me as if it might have fitted a solar panel as well. I'm not sure because I've not been here for a week or so. So yeah, so you've got a nice big solar panel on the roof there with the proper gland coming into the vehicle, and that will all be wired up to your leisure battery as it should. Let's just have a little look in here then. Right, yeah, so it's actually wired up. So because you've got 6 wires going up into the bottom of that controller there, that tells me that you've got the power coming down from the solar panel is being split off between the engine and the leisure batteries. So any time essentially that the hookup, the van is outside and the sun's on it, the solar panel takes that sunlight, converts it into voltage and puts it, or ampage even, and puts it into your engine and leisure batteries. So essentially the idea is the leisure battery gets the most of the power, and then the vehicle battery gets kind of it's normally about 70-30. 70 to the leisure, 30 to the vehicle. That's normally the way we do it. So that's all up there. You don't need to do anything with that. That's all just literally, just leave it as it is basically. Right, so at the front here, you've got a couple of bits and pieces that I want to run you through. So the Sergeant Power supply unit is the main one, really. I mean, it's a small motorhome. There's not, you know, a huge amount of things I need to run you through, but the power supply unit is pretty essential. So anytime that you've got this little switch just here on, it will tell you a voltage. No matter what it is, it will tell you what it is. So if I turn that off, you know, so at night, you don't have to have that on all the time, so you can turn it off at night so it's not too bright. But all the time that's on, it tells you what voltage you have. It's telling you what voltage you have in whichever battery here you've chosen to look at. So at the moment, we're looking at the leisure battery voltage. But also, having this switch on leisure battery means that anything that's working via the 12 volt power, like the lights, are being drawn from the leisure battery. So if I went down to vehicle battery now, it's not ideal. If the hookup wasn't plugged in and I was running these lights from the vehicle battery here, you know, you can imagine that after a little while, the vehicle battery will, you know, it will die, and then you won't be able to start the van up. So really important that you leave this up on leisure. If you want to use the lights and you want to use anything at all that's 12 volt, use the leisure battery one. It also means that any time that the hookup's plugged in, your leisure battery is the one that's being charged up, which really 9 times out of 10, that's what you want. Having the solar panel on the roof makes a huge difference because it means that you don't have to have that hookup plugged in to charge your batteries up. Usually, hookup and actually running the engine are the only 2 ways that the battery to be charged at all. Whereas now you've got that one extra way. So that's really, really handy having that on the roof, especially if you're going to do some wild camping and things like that. So you can see that I've got the lights / auxiliary switch on as well, and that just basically means that the lights and the 12 volt socket there will work and all that kind of thing, and the water pump switch is also on. So essentially what that means is if I pull the tap here, it might not actually draw any water through because I don't think there's any water in the tank, but the pump works. If I turn this switch off, the water pump switch off, absolutely nothing at all. So the good thing about this van, and well, you know, they've all got their pros and cons, but having a submersible pump, which means a pump that sits inside this tank physically, it just drops in, means that it doesn't work on water pressure. If you had a pump that works on water pressure, which actually most motorhomes do, so it's not really a big problem, but if you have a pump that works on pressure, what happens is they are the first ones to get leaks because all the time that your pump switch is on, it's at maximum like 30 psi pressure. With the submersible pump, absolutely nothing at all is happening until you physically lift this up. And the second you turn it down, it stops. The only time that pump will run is if you open this up and the little micro switch opens up and physically switches it on. So there's no pressure at the tap basically until you lift that tap up. So also in this cupboard here, and so just, you know, I'll just quickly show you, if you want to fill up your freshwater tank, it's literally just this one here. So you pull the pump out the top there, fill it up, put it back in. The toilet just here is new, so you know we don't feel like we need to. I don't feel like I need to show you how to use that because all the instructions are just here, but it's so simple. But yeah, so that's that. It's obviously cold water only, so there's no hot water in the vehicle. So it is literally a case of fresh water tank just there, lift it up, and the waste, like I said, has the point on the outside. So essentially what happens is there's not a specific tank, essentially. So you need one of those little rollaway waste tanks to go underneath that point outside. So all caravans work in the same way, or most caravans. So, you know, with a caravan, you would have one of the waste rollaway tanks underneath the waste drain out there. So that anytime you draw any water through and it goes down the sink here, it will just come straight out outside into your tank. Up here, we've got your cooker, your 2 burners. So again, really, really simple how these work. You've got an electric ignition. So pushing this button here turns the ignition on, and then you do literally just like a household cooker, like that. These do take a few seconds to fully open up. just like that. So obviously propane is making this work. The one on the bottom here is for the left one, top is for the right. But yeah, I don't feel like I need to show you how to, you know, it's just like any household cooker. It's really, really simple. The only thing I will just ask is there will be something, you know, a little symbol there saying don't close it down on the flame. These bits of glass are specifically made to be nice and strong and be able to withstand a little bit of heat. But if you, so essentially if I had that on for 10 minutes or so and I was cooking on it and I switched it off and I just went like that straight away, I can nearly guarantee you that this glass here will shatter. In my opinion, you should let these cool right down before shutting the glass down. I've seen it so many times where grill glass and cooker glass like this has just shattered. It's not the biggest problem in the world because you can replace these, but it's obviously a real mess and not very nice to actually see and deal with. So leave these to cool down before you shut the lid down. Not just, you know, I know it says there don't shut it on the open flame, but it's not just that. Leave it to cool down before you shut the lid down. The fridge, so it's a 12 volt only fridge. I'm not sure if it's been written on the habitation sheet or not, but we'll just quickly explain something. The fridge itself is 12 volt only. It doesn't work on mains power, it doesn't work on gas, nothing else, only 12 volt. But when you turn this on, if you have a hookup plugged in, it will draw very slightly more power for the time that it's switched on. And the reason for that is when you have a hookup plugged in and the battery charger is on and it's up at 14 volts like this, the battery charger is drawing, say, I don't know, 0.5 of an amp. But when you turn this fridge on, it draws so much power from the leisure battery that the battery charger needs to work harder to keep the leisure battery topped up. So the battery charger itself, not the fridge, the battery charger, will then start to draw about an amp or an amp and a half maybe. So it's not actually the fridge drawing any more amps, it's the charger drawing more amps to keep the leisure battery topped up, if that makes sense. So when I turn this on, like this, the whole system will kick in. And you can see there, the battery voltage has stayed exactly the same. Now, if I didn't have a hookup plugged in, that battery voltage would be down at like 11.5 or 12. So at the moment, the battery charger in the back there is working a little bit harder to keep that voltage exactly where it is. So I hope that makes sense. All I've done to turn that on is press and hold this little button just here, and it comes on. After about half an hour or so, that fridge will be cold. In comparison to the bigger three-way fridges that are in all the other motorhomes, or the bigger ones, these are so much faster at getting cold. The other ones can take 3 or 4 hours. These take literally like half an hour. So the idea is, if you, for example, if you were going to go on holiday tomorrow, I would advise you switch this on with all of your stuff inside it the night before you go away, and then by the time you come out to the van in the morning, everything and the fridge will be nice and cold before you leave, and then literally just leave it on. Turn your engine on, drive, do whatever you like. This will stay on the whole time you're driving. You know, that's it. It really is as simple as that. Having the solar panel on the roof makes a huge difference as well. Having the 12 volt fridge here, if you didn't have a solar panel on the roof, I would now be explaining to you that really, if you want to have this on all the time, you need to have a hookup plugged in because they draw quite a lot of power. But having a solar panel on the roof means that all the time this is on, if you're outside and the sun's on it, you know, you're going to have power drawing through and being drawn out. So it kind of just trickle charges itself, keeps it topped up. So having that solar panel on the roof is fantastic, really. I mean, I'd always advise it for any motorhome. So yeah, you can leave that on all the time, but leaving this little dial on here telling you the voltage is really important, because if the voltage starts to go, I mean, even with a solar panel, for example, at night, well, I say that, but when these fridges get cold, they don't use a huge amount of power to keep themselves cold. They kind of just come on and off, on and off. But at night, when there's no sunlight on the roof and the solar panel's not doing anything, if you don't have a hookup plugged in, you probably will notice that voltage going down to sort of 12 volts. 12 volts is absolutely fine. It's when it gets down to about 10, then, you know, it's starting to get too low and you really need to hook it up. So yeah, just keep your eye on that. As long as you have this fridge on. If you don't have the fridge on, you do not need to keep your eye on that, because it's, you know, having the solar panel on the roof is plenty. But there you go. So another thing I'll just quickly explain to you. So all the time that your engine's running, you've got obviously your alternator charges up your engine battery like any other car does. But being a motorhome, it's got something called a split charger or a split relay. And essentially what happens is when you start the engine up and start driving, that power that's being sent from the alternator to the engine battery also gets sent through to the leisure battery. So essentially, any time that your engine's running, you're charging up your engine and your leisure battery at the same time. So you've got a solar panel on the roof, the engine charges up the leisure battery as well as the engine, and you've got the access to the hookup cable, which uses an actual battery charger. So really, I wouldn't worry at all about the battery voltage in here, and I would imagine that this is going to last really, really well. The only real reason, apart from the odd, you know, completely random case that you would get, you know, a Duff leisure battery or something like that, is when they get used up, drained out, and then charged back up. Used up, drained out, charged back up. Whereas this one is always going to be, you know, 13 volts roughly, because of that solar. Anytime that you have access to a hookup cable, I would advise you to plug it in, because like I said, that gives you access to this 240 volt socket there. But also the solar panel is great, but you know, that'll only ever give you sort of 13 volts, whereas a battery charger will give you like 14 and a half. So if you do have access to the hookup cable, just leave it in. You know, if you're going to a campsite and you've got a hookup, put it in. It just means that you don't have to worry about anything battery voltage wise anyway. So the paperwork for the vehicle is just in there as well as a silver screen, I believe, for the front windscreen, which is really nice. That's all in there. You don't actually have to do anything with the solar controller in there, by the way. You haven't got to turn it on or anything like that. Just leave it exactly how it is. Loads of storage, top and bottom. Your leisure battery itself sits down here. That is your split charger in there, so that's when your engine's running. And you've just got a couple of little fuses down there. So all in there, nice and easy. This part just here has been glued back up out of the way, so it's all, you know, as it should be. The bed itself, I'm not sure if you've actually used this bed or not, but it's so easy. Push the little button down, and then once you've done that, you can pull it out. Basically, you need two hands. But push the lever down and pull the bed out. It lays completely flat. And then when you want to put it away, push the button down again, push it back. It really is as simple as that. The lights have got two different functions on them. You can turn them all the way off. They're touch screen. So the first one is just a little red, blue light in there, which, by the way, at night is actually quite bright. You know, it doesn't look like very much during the daylight now, but you know, it is quite a lot at night. Or you can have it on the full power like that. So either way, exactly, you know, you can get it exactly how you want it. Just trying to remember where that little switch is for the lights up the top now. It's been a little while since I've been in this particular vehicle. Just pull this down. Oh right, okay, that one's touchscreen as well. So if you wanted to use the bed up here, you have got the little light there. So getting up to the bed up here, once you're up, you can fold this piece over as well, which leaves it completely shut off from the underneath here. If you don't want to use that, it does just go up, and it's nice strong gas struts there. They are actually way more hefty than they need to be, so you should never get any problems with those. When you are ready to drive off, pull this little front bed piece down first, and then the roof afterwards. It's really important that when you've actually pulled the roof down, you know, don't go easy on these things, basically, is what I'm trying to say. When it's down, you really need to tighten them right on, because, you know, driving 60, 70 miles an hour on the motorway, you know, even, it doesn't matter how tight you put these, you will get a little bit of wind noise, a little bit of draft noise when you're driving. It's completely normal. But if you don't tighten these right up, it's, you know, it's kind of dangerous sometimes. So you do need to really tighten these on. Sometimes I personally, you don't have to do this because they are obviously made to work like this, but if you can, you do get quite a lot of excess. Once you've tightened it up, you do get quite a lot of excess. I would sometimes, you know, wrap it around one of these headrests or something like that, just to give you an extra bit of, you know, support if anything did come loose or whatever. But it won't. But if it ever did, it's always just worth popping something round. But yeah, so the last things really, you got your fuses on here. So you got 6 fuses. It does tell you exactly what they do underneath. So you've got a little fridge one on the top right, charger, all that sort of stuff. So that's your 12-volt fuses, and you've also got your mains trip switches as well in there. So if one day you plugged your hookup cable into the vehicle and you noticed that the battery charger wasn't working, and you know your battery wasn't up at 14 volts or whatever, have a little look in here and make sure that blue one on the left is completely up. When RCDs or MCBs are on, they show red, and when they're off, they show green. All right, so that's that. I will now turn the fridge off, so I'll just press and hold that same button to turn it off. And that's it, completely switched off. Right, so the last bit to show you really is just a couple of little bits in the cab. So you've got recirculate switch, just like any car has, air conditioning from there. The heater controller is this one, so the temperature, fan speed setting, and where the actual air goes to. You've got the 6-speed gearbox rather than the 5, which makes a huge difference. And to be honest with you, I've driven this vehicle a fair distance and it actually really does drive nicely. I was always quite surprised and impressed with the Vauxhalls when they, you know, well, Vauxhall Vivaro, Renault Master, they're the same van. So, you know, Renault Masters are actually, they're quite often the cabs for the much bigger motorhomes as well. So, yeah, they're used quite commercially. You do get a little LCD screen come up here. You can lock and unlock the whole van from in here as well. Heated rear window, sorry. Lights from here, like that. You have got access to the radio from here, and your washers and wipers on the right. You can adjust your mirrors, sorry, from here with a little joystick. That's it, I think, really. So, really short little checklist before you drive off or do anything like that. Make sure your gas is switched off. Make sure that your roof is down and really nicely secured down with those straps. Make sure your hookup's out and packed into the vehicle. Essentially just go around and make sure that all your windows are shut. Make sure anything that's inside is not going to rattle around. So like your cupboards are locked in properly, all that sort of stuff. Because obviously when you know, if you're going to be doing motorhoming, you're going to have a lot of stuff that you've got in there. So just make sure that everything's down and secure. But other than that, I mean, like I said, we've all driven this vehicle around here quite a lot. You know, it's been up to the show, I think. It's done a fair mileage here, so we know it's a really good vehicle. And yeah, so it's going to be a bit of a shame to see it go, actually, because we've obviously had it completely done at our sort of local guy that, well, not local guy, sorry, our guy that we know up north who does it for us. So yeah, so if there's anything you think I've missed out, then obviously let us know before you come and get the vehicle, and we can answer any questions. But between now and then, if you do think of anything else, just ask when you turn up. But otherwise, yeah, we look forward to seeing you soon to collect your van. Thanks very much.